Right, now it says it there, I'm Julie from Octo Design. And I am with Octo Design, but I also have another business, Emotional Intelligence. And the business is called EQ Advantage. And I'd like to talk to you today about our personal emotional health and the tools that you can use to improve and redesign it. In the complex world we live in, we all have a myriad of thoughts and feelings vying for position in our brains. And that dense jungle of emotions affects how we perform in the workplace. So for today, I'm going to use a broad definition of design. Design is the transformation of a state to a better state. In short, design is about managing change. So I'd like to pose the question. Oh, is that too? No. It's all right. My husband changed the designs last night. He changed the slides, so I have to keep checking that.
Is this your designer by any chance?
Might be. Is it possible to redesign the way that we manage stress, communication with our colleagues, and make better decisions? And the answer is yes. The most effective way of doing this is by developing your EQ, or your emotional quotient. And that's the amount of emotional intelligence that you have. Your EQ is the facilitator for your IQ, or your intelligence quotient. Everything we experience from day to day, from the day that we're born, passes through your brain stem first. And that's the primitive part of your brain. That's your emotional brain. The bit that's responsible for fight or flight. We emote before we think. Before anything reaches the brain's cortex, or the thinking and reasoning part of our brain, it travels an emotional journey first. And it informs what happens next. So it stands to reason that if we manage the emotional intake and output, then our thinking brain gets its best chance to do its job. So emotional intelligence is made up of 5 scales or characteristics. So you've got self-perception, which is how you see yourself, your self-regard, your emotional self-awareness, and your self-actualization. And then you've got self-expression, which is your independence, your assertiveness, and your emotional expression. And then there's your interpersonal skills. That's your communication bit. It's the interpersonal relationships, how you relate with other people, the reality testing, and also the impulse control. And then there's decision making, which is problem solving, reality testing, and I've already said that, and impulse control. So I'm just going to go back, because interpersonal is your interpersonal relationships, empathy, and social responsibility. Decision making is problem solving, reality testing, and impulse control. See, my impulse control took me to the next page. And then finally, the biggie, stress management, your flexibility, stress tolerance, and your optimism. Just like the design process, we start by mapping out the current state of play with a global standard psychological test bespoke to emotional intelligence. It's actually a psychometric test that shows where you are now. It doesn't put you in a box, and it doesn't pigeonhole you, it just says what level your emotional intelligence is across all of those scales. Once we know our starting point, we can then design or redesign the balance and improvement across all of the scales. So Google did a 10-year piece of research. So emotional intelligence isn't new. And Google's research, codenamed Project Oxygen, where they concluded that technical skills matter much less than you might think. But emotional intelligence was the #1 priority for directors and managers. And the good news is that whereas your IQ, your intelligence quotient, is pretty much set by the time you embark on your career, Your EQ is something that you can improve and develop and enhance for the rest of your life. So I should give you a little bit of information and an exercise in designing your own healthy practice in one of the emotional intelligence areas, and that's self-awareness, or more importantly, self-talk. That inner dialogue that we all have. Be self-destructive inner dialogue that we all have. But I'm going to start with some facts first. So, the first one is the average person has between 12 and 60,000 thoughts a day. And the fact too is 80% of those thoughts are negative. We are predisposed to think negatively. And fact three is that 95% of the negative thoughts are repetitive. So we keep saying them to ourselves. Cognitive behavioral therapists call those ANTs, or automatic negative thoughts. And we have lots of those, as I said. So whether you actually say out aloud to yourself or just think internally, we give ourselves so much grief every day. And if you think that we're on average awake for about 16 hours a day, that's 750 negative thoughts every hour. I think it's something like 12 and a half a minute. Anybody can do the maths on that? But it's a little. So let's look at a couple of those negative phrases that we say all the time. And you might say them out aloud, you might just be thinking of them, it might just be that feeling that you have. So it's things like, I'm never going to get this right. I'm useless at doing that. Stupid idiot. I might have known I wouldn't be able to do that. Oh God, it's Monday, I've got that accountant in today and I'm useless at record keeping. Stupid idiot, you forgot to get something out of the freezer for dinner tonight and you've got a memory like a sieve. Oh no, it's that presentation this morning. I'm so bad at public speaking. I look fat and I'm a mess. I wish I was more like him, her, more interesting, more articulate, more funny, etc., etc. Well, firstly, that's a huge amount of negativity. But as we've already discovered, it's not a fraction of those daily ants. Secondly, would you call your child, or your partner, or a friend stupid, idiot? So if you wouldn't do that today, why do you do it to yourself? The way that you talk to yourself becomes reality. What you think will influence how you feel and how you behave, and will become your self-perpetuating reality. So here's the exercise, all right? So you need to start becoming aware, and the first thing with anything that anybody tells you is become aware of it. So you need to become aware that you're actually having those thoughts. And I've probably said a few that I'm sure you've said already today. Even if it was just going into the bathroom and going to the toothpaste and going, oh, what an idiot. I should have bought some. Now I'm going to have to get scraps out. Or something like that. You've given yourself grief. Then you need to gift yourself a little bit of time and write those things down. Right? You need to write them down just for the day. You don't need to do it forever, just a day. Get some of those things down on paper and choose one of the labels. Something that you say a lot to yourself, like stupid idiot. Well, that's what I say. And I'm still working on it. From now on, challenge that phrase. And when you recognize you're doing it, counter it with something else, like, I'm doing my best is good enough. Or something that works for you. And the fact of the matter is, the more frequently you say it, the more the brain adopts it as the truth. And that's the list of the different things that you need to do. Now, finally, since the start of Rising Design, Terry's been lovely. I mean, this has been about, what, 13 years? 14 years? And frequently said, Julie, do you want to do something? Oh, no. The message I've been telling myself is, I'm great on one-to-ones, I'm great with a few people. But doing this is terrifying. So I started practicing what I preach, and I gave myself a different message. And this is the result.
That's good. Anyone have any? That would be interesting because we don't think about those things. I was listening to something on YouTube. It wasn't something I meant to listen to. You know, when something pops up on YouTube before the thing that you want to listen to,
Yeah.
and this guy was saying how the brain isn't hardwired to make us succeed. Your brain is hardwired to keep us safe.
Yeah.
So if by trying to succeed, you're doing something that's scary, then your brain tells you not to, then you have to and I guess it's similar.
The brain hasn't caught up.
Mm.
Yeah, the brain hasn't caught up with the modern world, okay? And it's still keeping us safe. And it used to look for, you know, huge woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers, but you tend to not find them walking through the street about to take your after delivery. So we replaced those predators in our mind with other things that keep us safe. And it's a case of recognizing them, and we can completely change the way the brain actually accepts those things. But it is, all those negative thoughts are just part of the primitive brain. It is the fight or flight.
Well, I was gonna,
Yeah, I was going to say, it just made me think about, you had a meta meditation.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, that it's like, you know, when you, because with, and there's some people that might not know, so you just think about how much you love somebody who's really close to you, and then you use those feelings to think about yourself, and use those feelings to think about somebody else, and then somebody who you're at variance with, and by doing it regularly, it kind of, you know, it increases. It's been, I think it's like, I read this scientifically, it increases your lifespan by like something, you know, really like positive, and a really positive effect by like really thinking about like positive things, you know.
Yeah. That's absolutely right, because what happens in the brain, because it goes through the brain stem first, in the primitive brain, the first response of the brain is, like I say, that sort of keeping you safe, the negative stuff. And the bigger the negative stuff, the more chemicals are released into the brain. So they kind of, they can poison you over time. If you've got somebody that's got PTSD or the real major issues that, I don't know, big events that have happened, that they have flooded the system with all of these different chemicals. So calming your brain down, I think there's something to be said about meditation here. Meditation is not that kind of fluffy thing that you go and sit in a corner cross-legged and make weird noises about. Meditation is just giving you time, your brain time to calm down. And then once you've learned the art of calming down, then you can start bringing in those elements that help you think more positively about yourself.
That's a question. So you've got EQ there, like, and you also brought up IQ. IQ is like very measurable. Is there a way that you can measure EQ?
Yeah. So it's a psychometric test that is it's developed by a company called Multi Health Systems, and it's very, very bespoke to emotional intelligence. And it takes all of those elements that I showed you, self-regard, self-perception, all of those things. And the questions it asks you in the short test, and it takes sort of 10 minutes to do, but it's been developed over years and years and years. It's on its third iteration now, and when you complete it, it gives you a level, gives you a score. So once we start working and coaching those different elements, so we'll see the balance. All you're looking for is balance. There is no, I'm better at it, I'm not so good at it. You just want balance in all of the areas, and that balance you can measure, and then you can see the impact on the work that you do. So you've probably all seen people that are incredibly intelligent, and they really should be more effective in the work and business that they do, or actually a bit shy, they're not very good at communicating to everybody, they don't express themselves well, they don't pick up visual cues when somebody's not quite engaged or they haven't got it right. That's what emotional intelligence does, and you can balance that up over so that you do get better results, not just from business. This is from your personal life as well. It affects everyone.
I'm just thinking about all the antics and the house of parliament. I'm just wondering if something is bad. Emotional intelligence.
Oh God, there's loads of it. It's a bit frightening watching anything on the House of Commons. Yeah, there's some really, I don't know, it's all very contrived. Because
Their actions aren't controlled, are they?
no, you can pick out a lot of things. You know, you could do a lot of the interpretation of the body language. And you can see when people are getting het up and that they're about to drop the ball and say something they shouldn't say. But yeah, there's a great need for some development of emotional intelligence in politics, but that's a long run.
So Julie, you're, hang on. So you're working with businesses, I mean, within the businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, yes, so it's, again, emotional EQ, emotional quotient is the amount or the balance of emotional intelligence that you've got. What I do is help people and coach them to a point where we find out where they are at the moment, help lift them up. So that whatever you do, and think about this in design terms, if you've got a client in a group of whatever the design element is, and you want them to stand their best chance, you have a look at some of them and you think, I'm not communicating with each other. That person's got great ideas, but they're terrified to talk. And so this is one of those things that really can affect whether it's teams within big companies, individual SMEs, anybody that is looking to increase and improve their overall success and contentment in life. And if anyone wants to invite you, you can talk to me. Or you could come and talk to me about Octo Design, who are industrial designers and innovation specialists. And we've been doing that for a long time.
2 reasons to talk to you.
Yes.
You can, yes. Again, Julie, thank you very much. Then next, we keep talking about something else. Right, and now I'd like to welcome Lee Tiller from LDT, who is also a designer, who's going to tell us about some this stuff. Yeah, so I'll just bring your slides. Well, I'll share your slides. Is it the play button? It's the right hand button should. There we go.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lee Taylor from LBT Design, and today I'm going to share a few projects that we've been working on in the healthcare sector. Before I do that, I guess nobody really knows much about me, so I'm going to share a few slides about me. So that was me back in 1993. Look at that. And the product that I'm stood on, or the yellow platform, is it's called a wobble board. And this is my first, I guess, real design project. I was studying A-level at the time. But it was my first product, and it was actually in the healthcare sector. And this little yellow board, basically a patient stands on it and they follow the little game that I put on the front there. And they follow a marble through the game system, and it helps them regain balance and also improves lower leg strength. And I also introduced some structures underneath it where you could vary the strength of the exercise per patient. And nobody had done that at the time. And I managed to win the Young Engineers for Britain, which was a very proud moment for me. From there, I went on to study product design at St John's University. And then I went on to do my master's at the Birmingham Institute of Art and Design. And then my first job, sorry, out of university was designing products to help children with disabilities. So I did that for 2 years, and I worked with a cross-functional team, mechanical and electronic engineers, occupational therapists. And we really got to understand the children's needs, and I worked a lot in the community with local schools. And we developed products to enhance their lives and help them engage better with their daily activities. This little fella here is on a product called the WYSIBug, and you can buy that today. And it's for under fives who need a wheelchair, but they want a more fun experience from the wheelchair. And industrial design role in that was kind of bringing the product and making it more relatable to a 5-year-old with disabilities. From there, I went on to work as a designer for an information kiosk company. So if you go into a shopping centre, you might see a digital signage or wayfinding. And I worked on a lot of projects in that area. From there, I was design manager for a kitchen sink and accessory brand in Leeds. And over a 4-year period, we turned the company from a technically led company to one that really valued design. And the sales revenues grew for that business over a 4-year period because of the direct resource of industrial design. And they sold a lot more products through DIY chains such as B&Q, Wickes. And they also opened new markets in the US. So the big Home department stores, Home Depot, and those kind of companies. So I really saw the power of design within a commercial setting during that role. And then my last role before I set up LDT Design was working for Jacuzzi, which is we all know Jacuzzi, we know the name. And I was working in the showering division, and we were coming up with new experiences and new ways to experience water and showering. So that was a really exciting role. And then I was crazy enough to set my own company up in 2008, which is when everything went bad in the world. We hit the recession. It wasn't too bad because it was just myself at the time. And then I had a few clients who I could work with. And then the business grew from there, really. So I'll just go back. That's 29 years I've been working in design when I had the all. So what do we do today? We work with people and businesses to develop their ideas. And what's important to us is that the outcomes are good for people and society. And that can be anything. It could help a child, like I talked about earlier. It could help a business do better financially. And a lot of talk at the minute is around the designing for the planet and making. We've got a big responsibility as designers to advance in that area. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about the medical stuff we've been working on. So this is a really interesting project, and it's kind of personal to me. We work with a company called Polyphotonics, who are a scientific company, and they've developed a device. We started working on it in 2009, and it's worn at night by a diabetic who might be suffering from diabetic retinopathy. So this is a condition that affects the back of your eyes, and it can lead to blindness. Now, I'm actually diabetic, so I've been diabetic for 30 years. This project's got really a lot of interest to me because if this can be made more widely available, then it's going to benefit me. And I'm sure I'll need this kind of device in the next 10 years, as many other diabetics will. So where are they at the minute? The reason it's important, and I want to talk about it today, was they've just agreed a NHS contract with an NHS foundation. That's a couple of weeks ago. Prior to that, we've been selling through the private healthcare networks, and we've got a selling product through Singapore. I think this is a real opportunity now to launch this product and take it a lot bigger and affect more people's lives. So how did we get involved with Project Polyphotonics? In 2018, we started a research and development project with them, and we raised some Innovate UK funding, and we worked with a team of scientists at Polyphotonics and other cross-functional team, and we looked at the next generation of products, which is the Noctura 500. And why did we want to do, or why were Polyphotonics looking to do this type of product? They knew the market was big for this type of device, and they weren't ready to scale up production. So they looked in 2018 at how they could use new technologies to make more products, make products in the millions. They also want to improve the patient experience. This is a more of a consumer product that we would leave with the user over a 12-month period. So they have to relate to it as a consumer product like you would in mobile phone. So they want to take the stigma out of medical devices. They want to improve the comfort of the product. So you kind of wear this thing for 8 hours during the sleep. And we did 20, 30 sleep sessions in different devices. And it's really hard to get something really comfortable to sleep in. But what helps through this product was we thinned down the technology. So you can see just below on this slide here, it's printed electronics. And it's imagine a newspaper. It's a plastic film that goes around the roll, and the electronics are printed to the surface. So what will allow for Polyphonics to do is produce these devices in millions of units, whereas the current device is more of a traditional electronic approach where they've got the PCBs and standard boards in there. We also introduced the current product works on OLEDs, and there's the big market for OLEDs is televisions. So supply chain, you can get supply chain issues. So what we wanted to do was introduce light emitting chemicals. So that's a printed light, which can be manufactured in high volumes. So that's something else we looked at. And we brought all those elements together into a working proof of concept product. And what I hope would happen when volumes increase, there's kind of ideas in there now which can be taken forward and allow them to scale up production and manufacturing. Another project I got involved in, again related to diabetes. I am targeting companies who are developing products for diabetes, because the more products we can get out there that benefit me, and it's a massive problem, then and we can help contribute to that. You know, I think it's a good strategy. So this is a non-invasive blood glucose monitor, and it was developed with Leeds University back in 2016. The state of the blood glucose monitoring market at the minute is traditionally you used to prick your finger, extract blood from it, and put it onto a device, and it would tell you what the blood sugar reading was. Technology's moved on. I have to do that 4 times a day. It's really inconvenient. It's horrible. You get used to it because you've been doing it for 30 years. I've got pinpricks all over my fingers. The market now is you can wear a little plastic sensor on your arm, and you can take a mobile phone and you can scan it, and it'll tell you what your blood sugar is. You can also now get that device to talk to your mobile phone via Bluetooth, and it'll just send you your readings through your mobile phone. The next step is continuous monitoring non-invasively. It's that little patch that you wear on you has still got a needle in your skin, and you still have to replace it every 5 or 7 days. Now there's a race to market for this technology. In fact, it could be happening right now. Somebody could be launching a non-invasive glucose monitor. They may well be. But I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we will have a device that's available to do this. So we helped early stage bench testing. The rough images on the top left there, it's really crude equipment to test the idea. And the clever bit behind this particular product is there's a little piece of silica glass that's manufactured in a chamber in the science labs at Leeds University. And they fire a laser into it. When you've got your finger on that piece of glass, the laser fluoresces into your skin, and then there's a detector what detects the signal coming back from your finger and from the fluorescent in your finger. And then they use an algorithm to work out what that is, because I don't know, I'm not that technical. And it'll tell you what your blood sugar is. So you use a piece of glass, a laser signal, and an algorithm, and it can predict what your blood sugar is. So we built a benchtop unit. We had a clinical trial with 12 different users. They had really good results from that. And the next bit of the project was to turn it into a wearable. So we had to look at scaling down the technology within it, looking at how the device, looking at how it would attach to the skin. And we did some feasibility work in that. And this project's still ongoing. So 6 years later, it's still work's been done in this area. So I'm hoping in the next few years we will get a product This is a slightly different product. It's something we got involved with. It's a sample. We call it sample pod, but it carries pathology samples from a GP surgery to a pathology lab, and a lot of the problems. Quality Hospital Solutions went into the hospitals and tracked the process of collecting pathology samples. It was really inefficient. And anybody who's had their blood taken, I'm sure probably most people have in the room, will take your blood. It could be in one of 7 different size containers, depending on what type of blood they're taking. We'll throw it into a plastic bag. We'll throw that into a tray. And then somebody at the end of the day will collect all those plastic bags and throw it into another bag. And then that bag will get put on a van and it will get sent to a pathology lab. What Quality Hospital Solutions discovered was we can make that system a lot more efficient and get rid of the plastic bags as waste. So we helped them develop this little container that you can see, and it accepts 7 different size vials, so all the vials that are around in the NHS. It allows you to stack them in there really easily, so it doesn't matter what blood type you're taking or if you're taking a urine sample. Each of the samples have got a smart label on it, so you can scan it before it goes into the pod, and then the actual pod itself's got its own tracking label. So what you can do with all that technology now is you can track the samples, you know what information is on the samples before it gets to the pathology lab. When the box gets to the lab, they know what samples they're expecting. They'll literally take the lid off it, put it onto the conveyor, and it goes into the sampling machines which pick and place and basically do the analysis of what's inside the vials. So we've stripped out a lot of the kind of manual process around it and improved efficiencies. And then the last project I want to talk about is something, so all the work we've done prior to this is consultancy work. But when COVID-19 hit, we had to rethink our business a little bit because, as everybody knows, business got affected, our business got affected. So we looked at the healthcare system and we saw all these problems which people were experiencing from COVID. And we thought we should apply our skills and try and help out in that area. So that's what we did. We started our own products and we raised some funding through Innovate UK. And we looked at this particular area, which is respirator masks within the NHS. And you've probably all heard it on the news. You know, they're uncomfortable. It stops communication because you've got a large thing on your face and nobody can see your mouth. They're hot. They're uncomfortable. They leave marks on your face. A lot of the technology is based on the industrial sector, so they're very over-engineered, they're very heavy, they're not easy to wear, they're not reusable, they get thrown away at the end of the shift. So, and then a big area that we highlighted, so over a 6-month period, we gathered all the insights into this sector, and we thought, right, we can do this better, we can help healthcare professionals better. And the big area of it is the fit testing. It's so antiquated, you would not believe it. So what they do is they give you a selection of respirator masks, maybe one from 3M, one from another company. We'll get them to put them on the face, we'll put a hood over the user, and we'll spray a fragrance into the hood. And if you can smell the fragrance or taste it, you failed the fit test. So they'll try another one and we'll repeat that process. And in the NHS, usually it's manually written down, so they record the results. So if you can imagine COVID-19 hit and they're trying to get everybody fit tested to respirator masks, and it just collapsed, so they weren't doing it. People going into service not protected correctly. So that was a big area we wanted to kind of update and bring up to date. So after 9 months of work, we had some conceptual ideas and we'd start to bring our ideas together of what the product could be. And it's more like the products on the left, although that's not the final device. It's a full transparent respirator mask. It's got a really large kind of area at the front of it, so you can see your nose and your mouth for communication. We pushed the filters right to the side, and we've found some really efficient filtration options, which allow you to still breathe the same amount of air You've still got the FFP3, which is the highest protection you can get for a respirator mask. And you can replace them as well. So you can pop that little cap off, you can pull the little filters out and you can dispose of them. And then the rest of the respirator mask you can reuse, you can clean it. So it's a much more efficient way of designing the respirator mask. It's also very lightweight, very comfortable to wear. We designed a gasket there, which is you can resize that for different sizes of faces and profiles. And then the next bit of the product is a digitalization of the fit testing. So what we wanted to do was revolutionize fit testing. So we came up with our own system of doing that. I can't say too much about it. We've got a patent on this, but it's got something low cost within the respirator mask, which relates to the terminal that you can see on the screen. And that combination of those two items can allow you to fit check yourself every day before shift. I'll tell you a little bit about how it works. And so if you imagine you're a healthcare worker, you've got an ID card. Let's assume there's an RFID chip in there. You tap that on the terminal, it brings up your information, your health information. It knows who the member of the staff is. You take the respirator mask out of the box, you tap that onto the same terminal, and it matches those two together. So it knows Joe Bloggs has got this respirator mask. It deducts it from the stock because it's on a central system. And then they move to the next stage, which is following the procedures on the screen, which takes about 10 seconds. And they follow this procedure. And at the end of that, it says you've got a pass or a fail. It records that information onto the database. So you already know, it already knows you've got what stock's gone, that your member of staff has got a safe fitting product, and the next person can try it. The reason this is important is fit tests only happen every 6 months. So if you lose weight, if there's a change in your physical characteristics, you don't know every day that you're going in safe. Whereas by doing it this way, if you can make the process easy, like we think we are, you can fit check every time you go into a shift. Now, the reason this won't be adopted by the NHS and it will take a long time, in my opinion, is because it's disruptive and it affects the current working practices within the NHS. So although it's there as a technology, and I think it's really useful, I don't think, not in the next 5 years, we'll probably get it in. But what we have done is we've developed the respirator mask to the next level. So we've got involved with a manufacturing company in the UK, and we are trying to currently develop this, get it through testing and get it into the NHS. And we think that'll probably take another few years. And unfortunately, the NHS have took the pace off of this kind of product because COVID's gone. They're trying to get people into beds and other priorities have taken over. But we'll still carry on with this product because I think in a few years' time, something like this will really help the NHS. It's reusable, recyclable. We can create a full circle economy with the products, and so we think it's got a good future. So to summarise, I think every healthcare project that we've worked on is different, but a well-organised approach and doing the research and the front end work pays dividends, and it usually involves a cross-functional team. We often work with scientists, end users, and prototypers, manufacturers. Everything's got an input into how the product ends up. I think a good project could look like this. Obviously, you need a proven need or a need for the product, and ultimately that will drive change in the system or in society. I think the IP landscape, we did a lot of work on looking at existing IP. There was a lot out there from big companies like 3M. You can't always find the latest up-to-date information. You're always a couple of years behind, but you can get a good idea of the landscape and that will guide your development. State-of-the-art research, so looking at near neighbours, what the competition are doing around the world. You might see something within their technology that you want to avoid or you want to enhance. You basically surround yourself by all the competitor products and learn from them, and then that'll drive your design. planned funding for each stage of the development, you'll run out of money if you don't do that. We find getting funding from a place like Innovate UK can fund the first part of the project and the feasibility of it. And then private equity funding can help support the project from there on in if the idea is good and you can demonstrate the benefits of it. Build your buy-in from the target market. So if you can get involved with the NHS, if you product the NHS as early as you can, and get an ambassador and a champion to work with you on the product. We're doing that at the minute. We're working directly with the innovation team at the NHS and getting them involved in it and brought into it. It helps penetrate the NHS and get the products in. Still really are. Access to user groups. So we did a lot of user testing and we did a lot of feedback. We talked to the NHS users through questionnaires and we got their input into the system to make sure we were understanding what we were doing was beneficial. Regulatory approvals is key for any. The FFP3 product is a class 1 medical device. Some of the other respirator masks have lower protection arms, but to get the you need somebody who can advise on the regulatory side of things. If you can't do it yourself, I advise getting a third party in to do that to help you with that. I think product design joins it all together. I think you need access to CE testing facilities. You know, they were backlogged for 6 months and you couldn't get a product into test it because of COVID. You know, if you can find other labs, we had to go to Austria to get our products tested because it took 6 months to go through the UK. So I think, you know, have those facilities available so you can test as you go along. We tested at iterative stages in the development to ensure we were meeting or we would meet the CE requirements for it. And consider the impact on the planet. You know, this is something we're really taking to heart. I mean, it's really important for every product we design. And we believe the new respirator mask that we've created is kind to the planet, so that's really important. Thank you for listening.
Great, please.
How do you deal with or find difficulties with product take-up, so or resistance to take-up? And maybe comparing the NHS to products that you don't have to sell through the NHS.
Yeah, there's a massive resistance there. Actually, the manufacturing company we're working with, they're actually the conduit to the NHS rather than ourselves. But there's been quite a lot of strategy involved in trying to get it into the NHS. We've actually done the first product, which doesn't require as many approvals, and it fits better with the NHS working practices, let's say. So the idea is to get that into the NHS first, which is probably about to happen in the next couple of weeks. So it's got benefits that I've talked about today, but not all of them, because it was too difficult to get in with our, I guess, quite a lot of changes that we made to respirator masks. So that's how we're approaching it, getting a phase 1 in, and then establishing that, and then piggybacking with enhancements to that, and introducing it into the system slowly. But yeah, there's a massive, it's really, but I don't know if that's changing, but there is a big inertia to getting stuff in.
Yeah, it sounds like hard work, but it's worth it if you can.
I think so. I think obviously if you can get it in there. I mean, Polyphotonics are a great example of that. You know, that's a fantastic product which can benefit so many people. But justifying it and getting into the NHS is, I know it's been a real battle. So,
Didn't they think about leaving the UK completely at one point because they just weren't getting any
They
traction?
They did. They focused on the Singapore market. Yeah, but that's why I'm so pleased with the news. You know, it's fantastic. It's a local company and they're doing great things.
But just, I went to one of the show and tells with the IMAX. And what people probably don't realise is you'll have the data on this. The cost that it currently takes to inject the eye when you start in this pre-diabetic phase that requires the injections. They're injecting the eye, so it's uncomfortable to the patient, and it costs thousands for each injection. And the process of the injection ultimately over time degrades the eye. So it opens it up and allows it, it's back pressure and I don't remember.
The injections cost £3,000 a patient, and like you say, it's really invasive, really uncomfortable. I don't know about the backlash is, but the polyphotonics from their product just makes sense because of the cost of it for the treatment and non-invasive. But that just proves how difficult the NHS is to, it's a clear business case there that stacks up. Yeah, it's still been
Clients,
You're not going to the private sector to prove that it works, and then because the consultants work in the private and the NHS, and so you get that backfilling noise. Does that not work that way? Or
I think it did for Polyphotonics as well, because they did try the private sector, and I think it's probably worked for them. And they're gaining more experience and feedback on the product as it goes through that. So I think it's a good idea.
nice product, by the way.
I was just curious if you were able to say something about how this non-invasive and how the principle, which is sort of it works.
Yeah, sorry, I was talking past myself. So what it uses a green LED light, and when your eyelids are closed and you're sleeping, that frequency of light, you can't see it during sleep, but it stimulates oxygen to the veins at the back of the eye, and that stimulation of oxygen allows the veins to repair themselves. So what you get in a diabetic retinopathy, you get little blisters on your veins at the back of the eye. If they pop and they're in your central vision, that will cause you to go blind. Now, I'm sure I've not explained that scientific, but that's the principles of how it works. And I think after 3 months, the trials showed improvements in diabetic eyes. So I've actually got diabetic retinopathy. I'm really well controlled, but I've had it for 30 years, and you can't avoid it. Every diabetic who's had it for a long time, they're going to get diabetic retinopathy. I think 90% of type 1s are going to get diabetic retinopathy. So these products, I might need it in a few years' time.
And you know where to get one.
I know where I can get one. Depends on the discount. Yeah.
Like you mentioned the Singapore market, do you also try to spend other countries?
Don't know the business model for Polyphotonics because we would go with the kind of design side of it. The first products came out of Northumbria University. So the first device we actually worked on the integration into production, the production chambers, and the control of the drawings. And then more of our work was done in the second phase of the future products. I don't know what other markets Polyphotonics will do.
The face masks?
The respirator.
Yeah.
So that is UK only at the moment, but obviously potentially in the markets. But again, we're led by the manufacturer, so we've got the sales and marketing arm for the product as well.
Just before we Zoomers, any of you guys, I know you've got your cameras turned off, but I'm hoping you're still there. If any of you have got a question, just give us a wave. But it's fine if you don't, with no pressure.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the blood glucose monitor that you're talking about with the finger. Obviously a lot of that blood glucose monitoring technologies in sport these days as well. I'm not sure if there's a sort of a longer term focus on that as well, with even the likes of incorporating into things like Garmin technology. Like I can see that being huge. Either lactate testing or blood glucose monitoring is massive in sport.
It's a good way to, a good place to test new medical technology. Also,
Yeah, I know Samsung have brought out a watch that can do something with your blood glucose. I don't know how accurate it is, or and I know there's probably around 100 different technology approaches to this problem. I actually know two. The one with Leeds University and another company we're talking to. But you're right. I think it's getting the technology reliable. In the minute, it's the problem. I think it's in the the diabetic has high blood sugars and low.
Mhm.
And I think that it's the hypoglycemic, the low region, which are quite tricky to. And if they get that wrong,
Mhm.
it's kind of comas and there's very big consequences.
Thank-
Yeah,
Good, then we'll finish with-
kind of related to the application, but yeah, I think a lot of sports applications kind of infer things rather than very precisely measuring things, and that's why they get away with it because they're not diagnosing necessarily.
Yeah.
But I was wondering about the laser thing. So my partner was pre-diabetic and I was not, well, was still diabetic, but
Type 2.
yeah, but I think it's on the record, but it's not. It's been normal for years and years now, but I've seen him, so he did get a monitor for in the beginning to use, and the person that told me the needles, it was a bit hard to watch that process, because, you know, if you ever, you have to prick your finger, but you have to wipe it away and then try again, and then get the second off, whatever, it's like, it's not just pricking your finger and stick it in, it's so complicated. And the sort of non-invasive method using the laser seems really good, but I was wondering if the algorithm has to adjust for different skin tones or things like that, if you have any testing on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of testing on different skin pigments, sweat on the skin, and studying where would be a good place to put it to kind of get the best result. And so all that's taken into account, sure. Yeah. I don't know much about the algorithm, but everyone keeps it very secretive. And I want to understand it anyway.
Well, yeah, you're-
Yeah, mine's a general point. Obviously, you've been involved in healthcare design for a long time, and just a few years you mentioned. And obviously, we've seen several of your presentations previously here about products. How do you think the design approach, or how do you think design it's been welcomed by healthcare in terms of, do they see it now as much more relevant in terms of acceptance of products, or is it just something that they have to tolerate because they need some kind of design element that they just want to get products to solve the problem? And do you think design is more about becoming more popular, more pleasant in terms of the way they look at it?
Yeah, I think what we do as designers is relate the technology to the user and make it acceptable. We understand the infrastructures and some of the bigger picture around the products. I think because of that, hopefully we can see that and we can get products in quite early. And once they're in the system, hopefully we can see the benefits of those. I think it's just change is hard. It's within the NHS. It's just such a big organisation. I do think, yeah, I think there's loads of initiatives going on at the minute where they've got people coming from within the NHS and they're coming with their ideas to designers and design communities to help them develop their products. We're working with a doctor in London who he came with his own ideas through a scheme, and we helped him the proof of concept is his device. We're seeing lots of that where the NHS or people within the NHS are coming, reaching out to design companies.
They're growing market.
It's a growing market.
Are there really quick questions that you?
I forgot mine.
Oh,
I promise I'll make it quick. Great presentation, thank you. Fascinated by the math project, and I don't expect you to tell us anything about the IP you've got, but have you thought about leveraging that into other industries? Because there are a lot of other areas where I can see that applying. The hazardous environments where you've got certainly got a lot of safety requirements and certification requirements in place, but also legislation working in Invader, where it might actually drive the sale of the product because they almost have no choice. And in particular, some of the products we build in the US, insurance liability is a massive problem for them. And of course, forming a big part of the answer. So it almost becomes an obligation to have your product.
We haven't, and I know the kind of products that you do as well, and that might fit with your markets. Something we haven't looked at, but obviously interesting.
Asbestos brings to mind in my mind.
Yeah, there's the list of them was going every day. So
Yeah, okay. That's interesting.
good stuff. Well, thanks a lot, Lee. It was good.
Thank you.
So I'm now like to welcome Rachel from the Academic Health Science Network. who do pretty much what it says on the tin. Yes.
I don't.
Hang on.
With
So-
the bells.
Oh.
Sometimes.
So I'll just bring you up the slides. Well, while. Okay. 6 seconds. Right.
Fine.
And you've got a second.
I've got a clicker. That's working.
Are we back now? Welcome back, Zoomers. So as I've just mentioned, I'd like to welcome Rachel from the Academic Health Science Network, who's going to tell us about, well, all sorts of things.
Oh, that's not working.
Go press the right hand button.
It's still on Zoom. Still highlighting the Zoom, maybe. Click on
Oh, it's
that.
working.
Do you want to start and I'll just keep pressing this? one?
So, good morning, still rising design members. I'm Rachel Forbister, the Mackem with windswept hair and a chest infection. So my voice isn't quite, well, even more Mackem than I normally am today because I've got a chest infection. So, anybody need interpretation? Any interpretation? Then I'm sure we can organise that. Andre's sponsored it as well, so it's good
Thank
company.
you for telling everyone.
I found this morning fantastic, my first experience, which is great. First question I want to ask, who has heard of the Academic Health Science Network? Pop your hand up. So let's back.
Richard, can I just ask you to move slightly? that way?
Oh,
No, that's fine, just for the.
I'm sure enough that I can still see, but the slides. are-
Oh, I can see you.
Yeah, so that's good, that's some people understood, you know who we are, and hopefully I'll tell you a little bit more about what we do. And I brought our secret weapon today, so a bit of a double act, Andre to talk about something local. I found this morning that Lee is the reason that I love my job.
Oh.
Not me personally. But it's all about how we do something different, how we challenge the system, how we bring innovation to life. And actually, the Academic Health Science Network, that's what we try to support to be in this system and do that in a little bit of a different way. And I was trying to think, did I have any negative thoughts this morning? And I wasn't sure, probably I'm warned about my cold, but migraine planted an onion and a potato for his children for their packed lunches. So that made me laugh this morning. That was quite good. So there's always something funny in our house. So, and I tend to find that I'm on the glass half full or overflowing. So that's a little bit about me anyway. I work at the Academic Health Science Network. If you don't know who we are the North East North Cumbria. We are one of 15 across the whole of the country. What we try to do is look at the spread and adoption of innovation and try to remove some of those barriers to how we penetrate the NHS, which is inherently challenging, and we've just had that discussion. So that's what we do. This is the map of the 15 and the geography of where they are based. We all do similar things, but also do things based on our local population and the challenges around population health of our own demographics. So we do focus on slightly different things, as well as leading on national programmes, could be lipids as an example, might be diabetes, but we probably don't do overly unless it's linked to CBD as an example. But we get challenged with national programmes, and then we have that responsibility in our system to try and make a difference. So there's a little bit here. We obviously service improvements into clinical practice where we can, although increasingly looking at social care as well and how we bring health and social care together. We work in collaboration, so we're not just on our own. So we work with our partners, so we've got RTC at the back, so we do collaboration with them, with all of the universities who are members, with all of our NHS trusts, with the ICS, ICB, you'll understand about the integrated care system and the board that supports that. So we work across all of those to collaborate, to try and innovate and make a difference in that space, ultimately to get better patient health outcomes where we can. So we do an awful lot in that space. And we're generally funded by NHS England, but we do get other funding pots that come in. We were established 2013 by NHS England. So I'm not going to go through this slide, other than talking about industry.
So one of the things that we do is work with our industry partners. So we might have a challenge, or we might have somebody like Andre who has an idea, and he says, well, what do I do with this idea? How do I bring it to life? What's the solution? How do we develop some software that helps us to do that? How do we develop a device? How do we design it? What do we do? So we often send out unmet need challenges out to the system. We've had one more recently around care systems, and we've had one around patient safety. So if you're working in this digital space, then actually make sure you're registered to find out when those come up, whether or not it's something you want to bid for as part of your challenges as an organisation. So the other thing that we do is we lead on something called the innovation pathway. So if anybody's ever met our chief executive, she'll say it's the only one good idea I've ever had. And then she brought that to life, but actually now that's adopted by all 15 HSMs across the country as a routine. And actually your slide about what does a good project look like touches on to that very much, and you'll see that there's some similarities there with that experience taking people through an innovation. In addition to that, you know, we kind of work on regional innovation, and we work with so many different people. And what we try to do is work with innovative people. So in our trusts, we have innovation managers who then work with somebody who's got that frustration. I don't know what to do. I'm frustrated. This system doesn't do this. And how do we try to challenge that and bring it to life and do some facilitation around trying to get the right people around? And Lee touched on that in his presentation. It's how we collaborate together. So this is the innovation pathway. So as I say, Lee's lovely slide there. This is more pictorial. We have 5 gateways. It takes us through a journey from the far left around that idea. How do we develop and design it? And how do we push it right through to actually scaling that up across the region? Sometimes you might have a product that's ready to scale, so you're coming in this back end, or you might have something that's at the very early stages. There's that Academic Health Science Network. Each of those hexagons has some specialisms that sit behind it, and we help you to navigate that space at that early stages. So IP was touched on around intellectual property, so we have a patent lawyer who works with us, who gives us advice and guidance. We might have something on PPI, so how do you engage with your local patient groups to find out what the need is, and actually does your product match what their need is? How do you test it? So we do things like that. And then one of the things that we also do is around regulatory approval, but working across the system to help. You know, this side here is about we are there to help you as an industry and to bring that to life. One of the things we are also doing, we're funded to work with North of Tyne companies. So if anybody's North of Tyne postcode and there's the North of Tyne Combined Authority, you will get additional support and links in with that programme. It's about 7 million investment across the region for that programme, doing different things at different stages. We've got a small chunk of that money to help you through that innovation pathway. So please do reach out to us. My slides will be shared afterwards, and my email address is on the front, and our website address is at the bottom right. For those who have a digital health product and want to try and sell it into the NHS, which is challenging, you have to think about regulation, which Lee touched on again in his presentation. There's something called DTAC. Hands up if you've heard of DTAC. Got one in the room. Yeah. Do you know what it stands for, Carl? I'm putting you on the spot now.
No.
So digital technology assessment criteria. What the NHS have done is they've pulled together all of the other bits like ISO 1000, the Cyber Essentials, etc., all into one kind of place. That says actually, if you're going to sell your product to the NHS, you need to make sure that you've gone through this process. So we're holding a workshop on the 21st. We've got somebody from the NHS England team presenting on that session. So that is something you might want to get signed up to as part of that offer of trying to get people in the right place to be able to engage. So one of the things, so I work in, I failed to say, I work in the digital transformation team. So I'm not digital. Don't ask me anything about IT, but what I do is transform. How do we take something and how do we work with a group of people to make a difference for a patient? So that can be anything. I've worked in the NHS for about 12 years, and I'm working with the HSM over the last 14 months. It's how we do that, it's how we support our people. I'm very interested in the human factors, so it touches into some of the elements that you touched on this morning. Because actually, if we don't do something with our people and support them to adopt technology, actually a lot of projects fail as a result of not taking those people on that journey. So that's one of my special interests. And we work very closely across that system to help transformation. And one of the projects I'm leading on, well, sorry, this is a website, so a range of stuff we've done over the past. We've got clinical resource collaboration tool, cardio mobile. Anybody seen that? I saw that on an advert last night on the TV. Which is an atrial fibrillation heart detection tool. So we've done a project in the northeast that's being rolled out across the country as a result of that. And we're doing something more extensively in robotics and how do we do RPA and how do we work with our partners to say actually how do we do RPA and what are the challenges? How do you process, automate the back office of the GP practice to make it more efficient? And then one of the things we are doing, we're working with Andre with our clinical leads, is we are leading our programme around digital pioneers. This is focused on primary care and it covers not just general practice, but covers optometry, dentistry and pharmacy. So we're covering the whole area and it's made of different elements of how do we invest in our people and support them through action learning sets and best practice share to pick up the low-hanging fruit, to give some tips to make life a bit easier, through into communities of practice, how do they continue to learn, but then through into innovation, and how do we use a big pot of money to help innovation come to life. Because what we'll find is frontline staff often have that idea to do something different and to really help facilitate that change. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to our wonderful clinical lead, Andre Young, who is going to bring to life a bit of, he's a great innovator. He's always coming up with good ideas, and this is your chance to share, not, one of those, although you have many, and I know that.
Okay, thanks for the digging up. Yeah, hi everyone, my name's Andre. I am a pharmacist, and I'm also a MACM, which you've heard already. And Rachel often refers to me as the guinea pig, because I am the first person to go through this pathway where the HSN are basically supporting me to develop something new, to innovate, basically. I've thoroughly enjoyed this morning, listening to the presentations. There are some transferables, so I guess the purpose of me speaking to you today is to talk to you about specifically my project, but hopefully there's some transferable stuff within it that might kind of appeal to you, might get some questions for you in your minds, and you can ask me that at the end if you would like. So really what I'm going to do is, there's no fancy slides. I'm going to give you a bit of background to me, then I'm going to talk to you about the project. And then at the end, there's a few pictures for you to see what that project looks like, which are very unprofessionally put together. So please don't criticize my tech ability. So as I said, I'm a pharmacist. My background is that I design new services for the NHS. It's cutting a long story short, but basically that's what I do. I've been doing that for about 8 years. Before that, I worked in the private sector. So I worked for large organizations, pharmaceutical companies, and we were doing innovative solutions for drug supply and services through the United Kingdom and actually beyond as well. I did an MBA in about 2015, and that led me to think about my career and think about what it is I was doing. And as a result of the MBA, I turned to the dark side and I went into the public sector to work for the NHS and for local authorities, where I did a lot of service design and commissioning of new things, new products, new services. Give you an example of a few of the things I've done. I have, back in 2014, I designed a new clinical service to transfer patients from hospital through to community. So when you're really ill, if you're in hospital, hopefully they're putting you back together again, you're getting better, but there is a significant risk when you're discharged that you might end up going back into hospital, and that happens very frequently. So that we designed a new service run through community pharmacies to receive patients in the community and give them enough support so that they didn't necessarily bounce back. So additional support to prevent them being readmitted in the hospital due to problems with their medicines and things like that. I've also developed, I guess the second of three things that I would mention is I've developed a blood pressure testing service, which has been commissioned through a lot of pharmacies in the UK. We've got about 11,000 pharmacies on high streets and in doctors' surgeries and in supermarkets, etc. in the UK. So my blood pressure service kind of fueled a new service that was commissioned nationally. So I think that's probably in around 3,000 or 4,000 pharmacies now. And then my final example of innovation and probably a lot of design work is a project which is called the Community Pharmacist Consultation Service, where basically I worked with a colleague and we designed a new way of seeing people who were ill with minor illnesses. Okay, so when you call up 111 and you say, oh, a lot of people call 111 over a weekend, for example, I've got constipation, I've got diarrhea, I'm vomiting, or I've got a problem with my eye, I've got a problem with my ear. You get classified as to how serious that condition is by the 111 service. And if it's not too serious, which is where the word minor comes in, you are referred to a pharmacy now, which is a service I designed, who will receive you and give you a consultation about your problem. And they also have the ability to escalate you quickly to another location if that problem is assessed to be really quite serious. Okay, so those are the kinds of things I do. It's not designing products, it's not tech. I'm a clinician, and that's basically where my interest is. But I often have to work with all of those projects. I've often had to work with technical colleagues to try and bring about a change within the NHS using their expertise and their technology and getting something designed from scratch. So that's my background. The project I'm here to talk to you about today, I'm going to talk to you about in 3 parts. I'll tell you a bit about the past of that project. I'll talk to you about where it is right now. And then I'll talk to you about the future of that project, or at least what I would like the future to be. This came from from a grumble, from me moaning on about something, which a lot of ideas, case in point, the diabetic stuff from Lee's presentation earlier. You're identifying a problem that you want to fix, and usually I usually moan about it first. So I guess I was with a lot of people in London, a lot of like-minded people, clinicians, and we were moaning about something. And basically what we were moaning about was that the 11,000 pharmacies across the country that serve you medicines when you need them, they also do other things. They do promotion of public health. And so they when people are coming in to collect their medicines, or they're just visiting, they might be just trying to buy a box of tissues or something like that. We will sometimes intervene or sometimes promote something for you to get you to make a change in the way that you behave. So it might be that we want you to eat a little bit more healthily. It might be that we want you to stop smoking. It might be that we want you to consider exercising more or reducing your alcohol intake. Okay, so it's all sorts of things that pharmacies do, almost kind of like nudging you, not kind of explicitly, to try and get members of the public to change the way they behave so that they are more healthy. And that's obviously a key priority for the NHS, to prevent people going into hospital, prevent people from becoming ill, prevent people from developing issues that would lead down a path. So we're trying to do that on a regular basis. We were complaining about the fact that this has been around for quite a long time. The pharmacies are actually paid to promote better health in their pharmacies. And the way they've traditionally always done that was using leaflets and posters. Okay. I can see a few smiles around the room. Now, leaflets and posters 20 years ago, but we're in the 21st century now. And my colleagues and I were talking about the fact that those leaflets and posters that are sent out to 11,000 sites nationally cost a fortune to distribute, cost a fortune to produce. And when they get to their destination, if they get to their destination, and if it's on time, they often end up just being plonked somewhere and nobody sees them, nobody picks them up. Okay. So we moaned about that and thought, what would be a better way to do it? And we thought, well, a bit of IT might be a good thing to come in here. Why don't we put a screen in every pharmacy, a vivid commercial grade professional display that would run public health promotion to members of the public in a much more active, much more interactive way, perhaps, and a much more vibrant, attention-grabbing way. So that was our basic idea, but we came away from there and thought, hang on, a bit like what Lee was saying, we struggled with the NHS. We work in the NHS and we struggle with the NHS. How the hell do we get people to pay attention to this idea? It's a no-brainer, or at least we were thinking it's a no-brainer. So what we did was we went to a marketing executive within NHS, because they exist, and they have marketing departments, and we got them to think. We got a conversation going with him. I think his name was Phil. He was a national colleague, so he was a very senior marketing person. And what he did was he helped us conceptualize what we were trying to convince the NHS to do. And he said, we asked him a question, or we developed a question, which is, you know, all of these 11,000 sites promoting 6 public health campaigns each year, for a month each time, how much would that cost? How much is it worth? Because nobody tells you how much it's worth. It's just part of the contract for all those pharmacies. And Phil went away and he did his maths, and he came back with a figure. And he said, that's, you know, if Coca-Cola, we're never going to do, but if Coca-Cola wanted to buy that kind of marketing, they would be paying in excess of 160 million pounds. Okay, so it's worth a lot of money. And how many people do you think the NHS have working on that to support pharmacies to deliver those public health campaigns with all those leaflets and posters? Nobody. Okay. Which is why it's really badly organised, which is why it doesn't happen on time, etc. So anyway, we took that idea away, and we had, with Phil and his marketing, we had a figure on it, we had a calculation of what that was worth, and therefore we could develop a business case. And cutting a long story short, we managed to get introduced to the AHSN, which Rachel's just talked about. And what we had the idea to do was to run a pilot using our business case, using our specification, using the detail of what we've described. And thankfully, the AHSN were really enthusiastic about the idea. So that was the past, that was the lead up to the project. We secured some money from the AHSN. Now, in terms of current update on where we've got to, we have run, I think, what is quite a good procurement process now. So we had our budgets, and the things we were trying to find, things we were trying to get into place, the 3 main things we were trying to get into place were basically the pharmacies, the evaluation, and the people who were going to provide the technology. Okay, so pharmacies, we wrote out to a lot of pharmacies here in Sunderland and Durham, and we asked them to express an interest in the project. We were going to pay for the screens, etc. So we got a lot of replies to that, and we sifted through those, or I sifted through those replies, and we selected 20 pharmacies in Sunderland, across Sunderland and Durham. Second thing was the evaluation, and we've already worked with Newcastle University on a number of occasions, and we trust them. The quality of what they do is extremely good, and we knew that if this project was to get legs and develop into something huge, which is what we wanted to do, I'll talk about that in a little bit in a moment, then we needed an evaluation, and we need someone to clearly tell us independently what it is we've managed to achieve with the project. And the question we've given to Newcastle University to answer is, are public health screens, digital screens within pharmacies, more successful at promoting public health messages to members of the public than leaflets and posters? It's a really simple question. That's all we want to know. Obviously, they're going to extrapolate on that. They're going to tell us, yes, they are for these reasons, and maybe these things aren't so positive. But we hope that they'll be able to answer that question. So they're in the process of setting that up right now. And they've got some good questions. They've done some pre-questions and pre-research data collection before we install the screens to assess the current state. And then the third element of the kind of procurement, the kind of setup, was the IT, the digital, which is probably what you're most interested in. It's not very technical, is it? I mean, it's basically TVs. The guys who are giving us the TVs, obviously they're not just normal televisions. They're not Sony televisions that you would buy in Currys. But we've been through a procurement process where basically we wrote a specification for the screens before we, well, in partnership with one of the providers. We made that specification really detailed. And we stress tested it and we made sure that we circulated it to ensure that this is exactly what we wanted. And then we circulated that and sent it out to 9 different providers across the country. It's irrelevant where these people are. It's just their expertise that we're after. So we had 6 written submissions come to us and we scored those submissions out of 150 because that's just the way it works. We scored them on quality and cost. And then we ended up with some preferred people that we wanted to invite to come and present to us. So we invited 4 people to come to present to us. And we sat in a wonderful room in Sunderland City Council, which looks a bit like, I think there's something off The Apprentice or something like that. And these people came to present to us and they sold their idea and what they could do for us to us. And we selected one person, one company from that. So we've got our screens provider. The good thing about that process was that it's robust. We've got records on everything. We've got scoring from the written and the verbal submissions. And actually, it was a very clear winner. I think we would have struggled if there hadn't been a clear winner, and we would have had to have done another stage of the process. But thankfully, those screens are now being installed. There were 12 screens installed last week, and there are going to be another 6. I think there's another 6 this week. I think they might have already been installed. And I'm going to go and visit some additional screens on Monday next week. So that's the stage of the project. We have been focusing predominantly on the hardware, on the infrastructure that we're putting in place, but I'm going to be switching tack as the project leads to focus on content, which is of course really important. Because if you have really good screens there, you have nothing to show on them, then that's a big problem for the project. So I'm going to focus on content. We've already got pretty good content, and there's not a shortage of good quality NHS content out there. So we're going to be making sure that's absolutely spotless over the coming months. So that's an update on today. In terms of the future and what we hope that it will do. Well, going back to the number of pharmacies in England, there's 11,000 pharmacies in England. We've selected pharmacies within our project, within Durham and Sunderland, that are representative of any pharmacy in England. Okay, so we've taken some pharmacies that are big, some that are small, some that are on a high street, some that are in a general practice, some that are in a local community, and we've jumbled them all together. And we are going to be testing those screens in every single one, and Newcastle are going to be going in there to ask as many questions as possible and get the data out. But what we hope this will lead to, firstly, is an evaluation from Newcastle University next year, which will be positive on the benefits of using digital technology to nudge members of the public to change their health behaviours. So if we get that report in, let's say, April, May or June next year, then we've already, and this goes back to something Lee talked about earlier, about working with colleagues and getting them involved from the very start. We've already been talking to national colleagues within NHS England about this project, and they are excited to read that report when it's produced, which is not always the case with reports. Sometimes they gather dust on shelves, but I think that if I go down there and we've got a report that says something really positive, I think the financials will work themselves out because 11,000 pharmacies. I did a bit of maths on my calculator before. The average footfall through a community pharmacy is 150 people a day. We've got 300 days, let's just say 300 days of the year where a pharmacy is open. And then we've got 11,000 sites. That is 500 million views of a screen, potentially. Not everyone will view the screen, but let me tell you, I've been into the pharmacies and you can't avoid looking at the screen because it's very bright and it's very eye-catching and it's literally just hovering near your head. So I think of those 500 million visits to pharmacies each year, I think a significant proportion of those people will see an advert on those screens. So I think the financials will be absolutely no problem at all. It's just whether the evaluation supports what we're trying to say. So anyway, that's an update on the project. I think I've sent you a video. I just wanted to show some pictures, but
yeah, sure.
see if this works. I literally just used iMovie and I'm not very proficient, so apologies in advance. But I just thought I'd show you a few pictures of the stuff coming up. Yeah. Okay, so first up is leaflets and posters. So this is what we found. I've been taking pictures of obviously what the current state is. Okay. So these are the leaflets and posters at pharmacy. And can you just pause for a second? Just so those leaflets and posters. It was interesting. I went to one pharmacy, and I was with a university student who was helping with the evaluation. And we went over to some of the leaflets, and I picked one up, and it was I think it was a red leaflet. Okay, so I picked up the red leaflet, and I was looking at it, and then I realized, no, sorry, it was an orange leaflet. And I looked at the other leaflets behind that leaflet, and they were red. And my student said, why are they different colors? And I said, because this one's really old. Okay. And she said, all right, okay. And then we worked out, obviously, this leaflet hasn't been touched in like literally 3 years. It's just sat there. Okay. So that's the kind of the intel that we need to gather to kind of create the current state. Anyway, sorry. And the posters are kind of, sometimes they're hidden behind things. Sometimes they're not big enough. Sometimes they've got sellotape and yellow sellotape on them. Nobody's going to pay attention to that. By contrast, this is some of the digital screens we've installed. These are very amateur photos, but you can see how clear and how vibrant that will be coming across to people who are sitting literally feet away from those screens. We've got 3 different types of content. One type of content is a narrative-led content, so it's a story, and sometimes it's got a famous person within the advert. We've got a second type of content, which is explaining something, and usually it's kind of like little cartoon characters moving around and writing coming on the screen. And then the third kind of content is just something very simple about some of the services that you can access through a pharmacy or elsewhere. It's just a very simple message, a bit like that one. So I know it's old tech. It's not on the face of it that innovative, but I think this could be a very valuable project that has been supported by the NHSN through from start to finish. And you know, I've had support on research, I've had support on communications, I've had support on project management from the NHSN. And it's just smoothed out all the stuff for me. So it's been really helpful. The last thing I will say about this project is, normally when I'm doing my projects, I have to convince a large number of people to do something that they have never done before. And as a result of that, within the NHS, I get a lot of kickback, and people don't want to do what I'm asking them to do, which is very difficult and puts a lot of stress on the project and involves a lot of energy being released by me and the team. With this project, it's completely different. And it's amazing because I go into a room and I talk about this project, and everybody that I speak to, literally everybody says this is a no-brainer. We should be doing this. We should have done it 10 years ago, which is a completely different kettle of fish, and obviously much better for me than my stress levels. Anyways, thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Andre, thank you. We're running a little bit over time, so would you mind, if you've got any questions, just call out Andre or Rachel afterwards and we're copying it. All right. And what I'll also do, as we're going up to speak, I'll share the contact details. But Andre, thank you. Absolutely. Now I'm going to put the people who want to do a 2-minute pitch, just to tell us a little bit about who they are and what they do. I think the first one is Paul. It's just Paul, do you want it? Yes, please.
I'll keep it brief. It feels quite nice to stand here after kind of talking about emotion stuff, product stuff, service stuff, talk about brand and design. We are Wonder Stuff. We've been going 13 years, and I've been working with lots of clients over that time, from Durham Distillery up in Prime Gin, then serving to make events on leisure more interesting. And 2 years ago, we realised during the pandemic, and of course, our personal interest, we should focus on wellness. Our focus is now working with health and wellness-based businesses to use brand design, positioning, communication to help them. James doesn't need that help getting so. But today, mostly here to talk about a kind of a project that came from that. Last year, we launched Art by Sport as a collaborative project to get art involved, to get sport involved, and to raise money for charities. We did a skateboard event last year and raised money for Branches Minds. This year, we are doing rugby balls. I've got support from the Rugby League World Cup, and we are supporting Newcastle Rugby Foundation. Do a lot of great work in terms of getting kids who are less privileged into sport for their mental and physical health. The balls are all being auctioned to raise money for them. The auction finishes tonight, and still time to bid. Scan the QR codes. I can tell you about the artists of each of the balls. Most of them are local, 2 or 3 are from further afield. That's it for today. Any questions, give me a shout. That's cool. Very well.
Now, Hermina is on, are you still there, Hermina? Yes.
Hi. Oh. Hi there, thank you. I've actually got a quick screen share. I don't know if it will work while I'm not.
We're just trying to be able to see.
I'll just, oh. How do I screen share? Sorry. Anyway, I'll start talking. I'm Hermina Ely. I work for Innovation Super Network and Dynamo Northeast. I run their health and social care tech cluster. And one of the programs we've got on at the minute with the deadline fast approaching, some of you might have heard about, is the Challenge North of Tyne Ageing Programme. We've got funding for 50 businesses north of Tyne, small to medium businesses who've got ideas that can support older people, work, home and play. So could be ageing workforce, could be social prescribing, being a bit more ambitious with that, could be monitoring around the home. This is, and also decarbonisation of homes, so anything to do with energy over the home, around the home, there's obviously overlap with that. And it's £5,000 of upfront funding, no match fund requirement, which is pretty good as an offer, and an accelerator programme from January to July next year, with collaboration with key stakeholders, which is a really brilliant thing as well for small businesses that want that collaboration and access to potential markets. So we're working with sort of utilities providers, social housing, NHS, Health Education England, Newcastle United Foundation, charitable sector, and it's Age UK. So it's really a great opportunity. And if anyone's interested to find out more, the deadline is coming up on the 24th. So please put in an expression of interest. Hopefully all the details are there, or you can ask them from Terry as well and get in touch. And that's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Hermina. I'll share your contact details afterwards also.
Thank you.
Sarah's not here. Liam.
Hi there, I'm Liam Monty. I've got a business called 3 Dental. We've created a clear alignment system for dentists. So we're doing an orthodontic laboratory. One of the quickest growing ortho labs in the country at the moment. We're looking to use that technology of 3D printing and sort of rapid design for dental patients, and looking to move that into the medical field. So for problems that the NHS may have, where there's issues with where they're looking for customizable products for specific patients. Yeah, so I'm really interested to have a chat with you about that. Yeah. Thanks.
I remember Liam. I then started less than 10 years ago, and there was you and your brother. And how many people have you got now in down in Durham?
For about 16, 17 members of staff. Yeah,
Good stuff. Nothing like this, of course. And it's Callum. Yeah.
So I didn't
yeah.
know much about what it was going to be, so I didn't even know what this pitch was going to be. So
Just 2 minutes ago, anything you know.
I graduated with a master's in mechanical engineering. I did the air industry. I did that at Cardiff Uni, and I got a patent on disc brakes when I was there, and I was welfare officer, so social care and everything that I care about a lot. After I finished my master's, I moved back home, and I was a carer for 2 years. My dad got schizophrenia, and then during that time, I started a business called Bestir. The word Bestir means to rouse yourself mentally, to make a physical effort. So the idea of that was that I wanted to help normal people bring their inventions to life, because I have a lot of free time. Then after that, I worked back in Cardiff, a company called EPC, where we did coatings on, well, I did coatings on heart implants and spinal implants. Also did some Formula One engine stuff as well. So quite varied. And then I moved back home about 4 months ago, started working with my own business again. And then I've actually just got funded yesterday for a PhD relating to 3D printing of semiconductor packaging and compound semiconductors as well. So that's the Catapult Centre down in Newport. But I'm also very interested in using AI and machine learning to basically, I think there's a project that IBM did a while ago called the Bellingsat something project, where they used AI to try and detect, like, in houses how the person was being, like, when things went wrong. So like what my idea is that really, like, I look back on when I've had physical injuries in my life, and generally before that period there's been a period of lack of welfare or like slight sort of like mental difficulties. What I think is for stuff like schizophrenia and Alzheimer's, I think there's huge opportunities to use AI and machine learning to really predict, like, when people are starting to not be themselves, where physical things might occur. So like with my dad, like I would pick up on certain things, like, oh, look, he hasn't had as many cups of coffee, he's like sat in the dark, like stuff like that. And I think there's lots of little cues. And I think by using machine learning, you can learn what's normal for that person individually. And then you could apply that across basically a lot of different aspects. I think Alzheimer's is a huge potential. So I'm working with, I'm in the early stages of trying to get some funding to do that. So I would look to support Rachel about that and Andre. But when I do my PhD in Cardiff, it's also the Centre for AI, Robotics and Human Machine Systems. And they're doing a lot of like cognitive computing. And I think, you know, like Alexa, you can ask Alexa questions. Like, I feel like there should be like a sort of medical equivalent of that, which is like, I think for mental health especially, I think it's going to be like almost a revolution, because it means that people can ask questions without having to worry about the stigma, because they're not asking a person and what they're asking. As long as they know that that's not recorded, they're going to get the feedback and the help that they need without feeling like they need to go out there. So that's what I'm kind of in the initial stage of doing a feasibility study with. I'm not bothered about being funny, I just want to make it happen. So that's why I'm trying to go.
Thanks, Carl. So if any of that resonates or sounds like you're on the wall, I'll chat with Carl. Thanks for that. Is Mike still here? Yes, it's here. That's good. I didn't know I was going to be doing this until I printed out a ticket. Thanks to my commercial director. All right, well, so 2 minute pitch, I'll do as quick as I can. There's one rip open one of those. Because it'll just give you a quick overview of who we are and what we do. Good stuff. So my name is Mike Waldron. I'm managing partner of RDD, or we'll call it RDD Plus if you want to say it like Sunday name. We're an R&D consultancy based in New York, or just on the edge of York. Bizarrely, it's not really not ever met, even though we started our business at the same time. We work across loads of sectors, from medical through to industrial plant through to power tools and hardware. Currently, we're doing a lot of work in esports and racing simulation and Alpine. We don't have a single UK client. All of our business is overseas, even though it all comes to our UK office. My first ever job was with your company, really, many years ago in 96, Steve, one of my first stages. And we currently, well, business is a sort of 75-25% split roughly. So about 75% of it is consulting. So, you know, goes for hire like everybody else that works in the area. You know, we like to think we have some kind of unique value in the area, particularly from a sort of business knowledge point of view. And that's partly because 25% of our business is purely royalty. So, what we were talking about earlier on about the IP on the face mask, we specialise in intellectual property. That's probably our number one thing. Outside of all the things you would expect in terms of innovation and development. And we leverage that IP across lots and lots of different industries, and we generate sales from that basically. And obviously, once you've done that, then it's it's never 20 years of income, but it could continue with an income. And we do that across all kinds of categories. Currently, we own, for example, the whole battery platform in Audi. So that battery platform that they use for tools and for domestic products, etc. They partly came from an ecologically minded project, but they wanted to bring it all together. So we wanted to find loads of stuff from all over the place. They wanted to own their platforms and every item. So basically, there was less in the market, and people could use it across more diverse products developed by those. Currently, since 2018, we've shipped 4 million packs since then, which is not a small amount, obviously, but that's globally. It gives you an indication about why we do royalty business, but that underpins all of our other activities and it allows us to reinvest all the time. As a consequence of that, we also do a lot of work that generates R&D tax credit and R&D tax relief and patent box. We do all that stuff. So if anybody ever wants to input on knowledge or just a little bit of steer on how we've learned the hard way over the last 13 years about how to do that. So there you go. That it was new. I'm really quickly going to run through some other things that might be interesting. If I can make this take over. So thanks to all our speakers who have been brilliant. No. And that's what I said at the beginning. That's what we do, and that's why. And hopefully today, that all of that has become a little bit more of a reality for some of you. I know we've got a lot of knowledgeable people in the room, but they're all knowledgeable, but in different areas. So our role as the kind of facilitators of the network, because you're all part of the network, along with hundreds of other companies and people out there, our role really is to kind of support the network, help it grow and flourish, which I think we've been doing pretty well. It's about encouraging collaboration between people, and we've seen that today, we see it all the time, and that's when the really interesting things happen. It's about giving assistance to companies as well. So if you want some help with something, or you want to find someone, anything, just give me a call or drop me a line, and we'll try and help or find someone else who can help. It's about sharing knowledge with things like this. But if you've got a really good story you want to tell, you could put it on the website. You could speak at one of these feature events. So it's an opportunity for you to share your knowledge as well as learning from other people. But it's also about raising the profile of the importance of design, which we all know, but a lot of people don't. But helping you raise your profile and raising the profile of the North as being an amazing place where there's fabulous things happening. So one of the ways we do that is through these Rise and Design events, which we've been for the last couple of hours. So in December, we've got the annual Pecha Kucha, and apparently you need a license to call it that. Who knew? But so it's the format is you have 20 slides and 20 seconds per slide, and they advance automatically. And so it's open to anyone who wants to just talk about their business, their passion, their holidays, anything. And we have about 50 slots. Well, people have. Yeah. So come along and listen. But if you want to give a pitch, then just you able to sign up. And it's really good and quite entertaining. And yes, I'll probably do my people looking through things. If you don't know, don't worry about it. Sorry, I've got to pass. In January, which is really scary, we're talking about January, but we'll be talking about advances in film and TV. There's some amazing stuff going on in this area, and I don't know if anyone saw the stuff about the Pallion shipyard in Sunderland, turning that into the biggest water studio in the world, hopefully, which is just nuts. So there's a lot of stuff going on, so we're going to hear about some of that. In February, it's around farming and agriculture, where again, there's all sorts of stuff going on that you would never believe. So we're going to be doing that jointly with the Rural Design Centre, who are doing a lot of work in that field. And then in March, Design for All. So it's all about kind of inclusive design and inclusive everything. So if you've got a story to tell in any of those areas, then let me know, and we'll see if we can stop you. All the information is on the website. So that was today's. That's the Pecha Kucha one, which you can sign up for now, and the others will appear in due course. They've also, a lot of them being live streamed as well. So each one of these is is you can relive one of the previous Horizon designs. So we can board one afternoon, get yourself there and learn some new stuff. There's other stuff on the website as well. So do please pay a visit, design.north.org. I'm going to mention our two sponsors today. So the first one is the Supply Chain Northeast programme delivered by RTC North, which is all around helping you get into new supply chains or manage your own supply chain or go into new markets they've got. They're funded through the ERDF programme until early next year. So you can get some support from some real good experts in all things to do with manufacturing and supply chains. So I'll send you some information on that. And then also the Innovate UK Edge programme, which is something I work on. Again, that's fully funded support for any business in the north who's doing something new, something developing something new or bringing in new processes. And you get access to a team of about 30 experts, so-called. I say that because I'm one of them. I'm not casting aspersions on anyone else. But we've got a really good marketing team, and there's also funding costs you can tap into as well. So you can let me know if that's of interest. And on that note, they're running a couple of workshops week after next. So in the morning, it's not in Lancaster. In the morning, there's an introduction to strategic road mapping. I think that's the morning, is it? Anyway, yes, that's the morning. And then in the afternoon of the same day, in the same place, there's a benchmark your innovation process workshop. They've got one of their top facilitators on the case for that. So it'll be a really good session. So, me? Could you not tell by the description? So if that's of interest, or you know someone who might be interested, then I'll send out details for that later. Just a couple of things I'll go on. Who knows Chris Nutman? I think a lot of us. So he developed this, to me, he developed this solar-powered projector that you can send off to schools, well, not even schools, anyone in wherever, and you can just create a classroom in the desert or in whatever. So he's just this young lad based in someone who's got a real passion for it. So it's fully developed now. So you get a projector and a battery pack and a solar panel, and then the projector you just stick in a memory stick, and it's got lessons on and slideshows on and all sorts of stuff. So you can create a classroom anywhere you might be. He's doing a crowdfunding thing in a couple of days. That was yesterday. So it's in about 4 or 5 days' time. What we're going to do, because apparently on the crowdfunding site, you can set up a kind of a mini site for your own organization. So we'll have a DNN one, and I'll put the word out. And if anybody wants to chip in, and we'll see how many of those we can get sent off to wherever. So I'll send you more information on that when it goes live next week. Sorry? Absolutely. That way, yeah. He's much better than, yeah. That's because I was listening to somebody before and not. If you're in the Huddersfield area, Wilson's Republic, which is a really good kind of creative network, their next event is in a couple of weeks' time. With some information, we've got some really good speakers for that. I haven't got with them, but I'll send you a link to that. So if you're in that area, you know, a good friendly crowd, and it might be worth it along. And then also the TEDx is tomorrow at Sage. We all know about TED, don't we? Well, this is a regional TED, and it's just the same, and it's brilliant, and they've got a full day of amazing speakers, and I think there's still tickets available, so if you haven't booked in for that.
Is that live stream?
It might be, yeah, possibly. I know Thinking Digital is, and that's done by the same people, so it might be, but it's better to go. And one reason that it would have been good to go is because there's an amazing workshop this afternoon, but it's full apparently. But I just put it up there because I'm quite looking forward to it. But yeah, TEDx is really good, so get there if you can. And then I suppose in a way, it's a bit like TED, so those Design Means Business conferences that we ran in the early teens, we had some amazing speakers from some fantastic companies, and they're all online to view. So again, I'll send you out information on that. And there's people from Aston Martin and Nottingham and Microsoft and all sorts. It was, yeah, really good. So I'll send you information on those. I think that might be the end. Yes, that's the end. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being here. Sorry we drifted a little bit over, but hopefully it was worth it. There's still tea and coffee out there, so don't feel need to leave. If you want to catch up with someone, go and have a chat, then please do. And otherwise, I'll see you hopefully next month. Thank you.